There's something called a straight day of remembrance, where we say the names of all straight people murdered. No, that would take too long, wouldn't it? Because fuck, loads of straight people get murdered. But there is something called a Trans Day of Remembrance, where in the US, where all trans people that have been murdered are read out 20 in the last year, apparently. And this is a Bernie supporter, it may even be Bernie sanctioning this, where they just read the names of each trans person. And they read all 20 of them. But there's something about them that they didn't mention, which is that 91%, I'm not sure how that goes into 20, but this is a statistic I found as well. That's probably over more than 1 year. 91% of murdered trans people in the US are black, and the vast majority of them are killed by black people. So, of course, on the left, there's a huge outcry against the black community because they're murdering trans people. No, there isn't. It's kind of weird, that, isn't it? Very strange. The Young Turks aren't criticising the black community for murdering trans people. No. How strange. It's almost like they just want to find a way of making whites responsible for all the bad shit that happens in the world, regardless of reality, isn't it? Can you imagine if all these trans people being murdered were white and the people murdering them were white? The pricks, the dickheads at the Young Turks, and other extremist, incorrect, scientifically incorrect, wrong outlets like the Young Turks, people that are lying, and also low IQ. If white people were killing white trans people, can you imagine what they would be saying? Oh, look at this toxic whiteness and toxic masculinity, killing these poor trans women with 9-inch penises. Oh, look, this is just more evidence that whitey is shit. Opposite happens, crickets. Not saying anything, are we? Cenk Uygur, fatty. Yes, I'm fat shaming Cenk Uygur. Not saying anything, are you, Cenk, or your inbred cousin with the small head, whatever his name is, and that communist Scottish prick, can't remember his name either. Terrible dress sense, whatever his name is. Funny how when something challenges what they think, they ignore it. Weird that, isn't it? This is really interesting, that almost all trans people being murdered are black, and they're almost all murdered by blacks. This tells you that there perhaps is something wrong with black culture in the US, does it not? You would think that the fact 3.5% of the US population, black men, commits 50% of the murders, you think that may tip you off as well. Am I calling all black people bad? No. Am I saying black people are genetically bad? No. I'm saying there are cultural issues in the black community that cause problems. One of them is fathers leaving the home. I think if you fix that problem, you fix almost everything. One of them is really bad music with really bad messages followed by kids. Do I want to ban music? No, but when it's such a core part of a culture and it is enacted by the culture in this way, and this is the role model, is the dickhead rappers with their money and their bitches, and their crimes. When your main role models are either fake criminals or fake criminals in songs or actual real gangsters, these are not good role models. Now, I'm not here to say we should ban music, but there's clearly a raft of cultural problems because of course this music's listened to by other kids as well, but they just follow it less. I'm not here to ban music or any art at all. I'm just here to say there are huge cultural problems amongst blacks in the US. This is yet another reflection of it, that almost all trans murders happen to black people and are done by black people. Could this be something to do with the homophobia and lack of tolerance in hip-hop, in that culture, the macho culture? Maybe. But again, nobody on the left is talking about this fact. Black culture in the US is clearly broken. And if you who's impacted by this the most? Black people. Black people underachieve in US society far more than anyone else. And the underachievement of black people in US society is almost entirely not because of racism. It's almost entirely because of cultural issues like fatherlessness. If you really cared about black people, you would want to fix these issues. How do you fix an issue? By openly discussing it. Nobody's doing that, especially people on the left. In the centre and on the right, people are touching on these issues slightly, but even then, right-wingers are scared. This is why the intellectual dark web is so important, because it is these very taboo issues that you must discuss, because that's the first step to finding a solution. Pretending that actually this the underachievement of black people is down to racism. Well, what does that mean? Then we try and find the racism that doesn't exist, and people that aren't racist get called racist. And we have things like unconscious bias training. What's that? What's fake racism again, that mostly doesn't exist, that's almost completely been discredited. And even cases where that was supposedly proof of unconscious bias, like hiring women in orchestras, that's also now been discredited. That there's unconscious bias isn't a thing. What is a thing is genuine cultural problems within certain communities, most notably the black community in the US. You want to fix problems, you have to be honest about them. And yet again, the trans murder rate's not very high, but the trans people that are murdered in the US are almost all black, and they're almost all killed by blacks. But no one on the right, Democracy Now!, they mentioned the fact most of them were black. They never mentioned the fact most of the murderers were black. Why not? Because they don't want to find the truth. They want to push an agenda. They want to push a religion. Or they're scared that saying the truth here will mean people are then racist against blacks. No, there's no reason to assume that. If you want to actually help people, we need to be honest. The left just lies. I'm surprised Democracy Now! Didn't try and somehow make this white people's fault. You can guarantee if it was white people killing black trans people in the US, it would be all fucking over these stories. Oh, whites are killing black trans people. No, because it's blacks, they don't even fucking talk about it. They don't mention the cultural problems in this community because they're scared to, because they're pushing an agenda, because they have a religion, because they have a faith-based ideology that doesn't care about the truth, cares about pushing their ideology, like a religious cult, or just like all religions are cults, really. Like any religion, you're not allowed to question the dogma. If you do, you're a bigot. If you do, you're excommunicated from the church. You're a heretic. You must be burned at the stake. Anyone who questions the dogma of the far left must be burned at the stake. That's what we see here. That's what we see with Democracy Now! Again, lying through omission. Once you see this stuff, you can't unsee it. It's fucking everywhere. It's just lies. The left is just lying. This is another classic example.
This was the Deviant Developer Podcast. Tap subscribe in any podcast app to never miss an episode. To contact me or make a welcome donation, go to thedeviantdeveloper.com.